2, 1. Looks like we're good.
Hello, welcome everyone to the State School Board District 14 Republican primary debate. My name is Elizabeth Garby. I'm the Vice President of Public Policy for United Way of Salt Lake. This debate series is hosted by the Utah Education Debate Coalition, which includes the Deseret News, Hinckley Institute, Utah PTA, Utah Association of Public Charter Schools, and United Way of Salt Lake. Thanks to all of you for joining us today to hear from the candidates so that you can make informed decisions this primary season. For the first half hour of this debate, we will have a series of questions that we will ask. Each candidate will have 90 seconds to respond with 30-second rebuttal if they are requesting a rebuttal. In the second half of the debate, we plan to go to audience questions. So with you watching on YouTube right now, please put those questions in the chat and we will ask those in the second half of the debate. And you can start putting those in now and we will get to them when we get to that second half. I now want to welcome our candidates. We have Linda Hanks and Nicole Beecher-Isom. Before we started, we did a coin toss and Nicole won the coin toss. So she will be starting with opening remarks. And with that, we'll get started. And Nicole, please begin.
Thank you. Good afternoon. And thank you to everyone who has taken the time to learn about this important race. My name is Nicole Beecher-Isom, and I'm running for Utah State Board because I believe every child deserves an excellent education and every parent deserves a voice in that education. For more than 2 decades, I have been involved in education in many different ways, working with special needs students, teaching American Sign Language and English as a second language, developing curriculum, homeschooling, and raising my own children who've attended Utah's public schools. I've seen education from the perspectives as a teacher, a parent, and an advocate. As I've traveled throughout District 14, I've heard the same concerns from parents, teachers, and community members. They want stronger academic outcomes. They want students prepared for college, careers, and a future life. They want special needs students to receive the support that they deserve. And they want schools to work in partnership with the parents. That's why my campaign is built around a simple principle: academics over ideologies. I believe our schools should focus on reading, writing, math, science, history, and civics. I believe parents are essential partners in education, and I believe every child, regardless of ability, background, or zip code, deserves the opportunity to reach their full potential. If elected, I will be a strong advocate for Utah's students, parents, and teachers, and I would be honored to earn your vote.
Thank you, Nicole. Linda.
Hi, everyone. My name is Linda Hanks, and I am from Levan. I'm the 5th generation to live here in Levan and the 4th to raise my children. I knew from a young age that I wanted to be a teacher because I had dear teachers that I loved, and I wanted to be part of that. I attended Brigham Young University, earned my dual certification in both elementary and special ed, and later, after teaching, went back and earned my master's degree at the University of Utah with a focus on severe and profound disabilities. I love public education and the promise that it can provide to produce a literate and an educated citizenry. My focus on running, this is my 16th year on JUAB School Board. After teaching for 10 years, I stayed at home with my children and I became a very active parent. I served on school community councils, parent boards, and continued to keep my foot in the door as a volunteer. I was asked to run for my local board, and I love serving and I love representation. My focus on serving on the state school board is to provide a strong rural voice for our 10 counties. This is the largest geographic area and mostly rural schools. And I believe in representation. Focus on student learning, providing meaningful support to our teachers, and expanding opportunities for our rural schools, for our rural students who deserve an opportunity to succeed. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Linda. And Linda, we'll start with you on the first question. What will be your guiding principles for decision making if elected to the state board?
My guiding principles have always been student success, student learning. And when we're doing what's right by students, then we are doing what's right by our teachers, providing meaningful support for them. But my focus has always been on students, and the focus of ensuring that students have the foundational skills, the knowledge, the learning that they need to be successful. Not all students come with the same skills, the same backgrounds, and they're certainly not going in the same direction. Some are going to choose higher education. Some might be choosing trade or going directly into the workforce or military. All of our students deserve an opportunity to succeed, regardless of where that zip code is. So again, my focus is on, as I represent rural schools, we do not have the economies of scale that some of our larger districts do, which means we need to have state support and we need a voice at the table. And I am very passionate about providing that choice or that voice at the table, because I have a unique perspective of being a classroom teacher, being it's both elementary and special ed, both in the including secondary. I also have served on my school board, and I understand how policies that are passed at the state level impact our rural schools and the impact that they have. So providing supports is not always doing something more. Sometimes it's removing those barriers so that students can succeed and our teachers have the support.
Great. Nicole, I'm going to send this to you. What will be your guiding principles for decision making if elected to the state board?
I can second what Linda said. I agree. Our students need to be our top priority. I would take it a step further. I would add that our academics need to have a higher standard than where we're at right now. Right now, in the history of Utah, we are at one of the lowest places we've ever been with our graduating class of seniors. Their overall reading average is in the 40th percentile, math is in the 30th, and science is in the 20th percentile. Our academics are not where they used to be, and this is a great concern. Our children need to be well prepared when they move on to college, that they have a grasp of these concepts. Returning back to our academics of reading, writing, and science, finances, government, a basic core knowledge of these important subjects is what these kids need to have a strong understanding of. And right now, we just aren't at that place. We have been declining, and it's a great concern. Our students need to have a stronger success rate in understanding these core subjects and the purpose of education. It is the academics.
Okay. Thank you both for those responses. Can you tell me what you both, and Nicole, we're going to start with you first. What do you see as the proper role of the State Board of Education, and where should decisions be left to the local school districts and charter schools?
Great question. So the main role of the Utah State Board of Education is making rules and overseeing those procedures. However, that is then works in twofold, with legislation to be able to make some of these things into a law, and second, also to hand this outline, which we do have established by the Utah State Board of Education, called Portrait of a Graduate, to our more local districts. And from there, they are to take that outline and to make decisions how to apply that to their own district. I will always advocate for the local control. I think that our local teachers, admins, and parents know their students best, and they know how to be able to address those issues. And should they need more help, that's what the board is for, and we're happy to back them up on that. But it is always best to have the local control. I do see some things where I feel we could have more say from parents and teachers on a local control, and that's something I would like to encourage. For example, we have the curriculum board, which is a district level, and we have those that are on that board that will evaluate curriculum for the year. It is difficult for parents to be able to access those and know who voted for what. It's difficult for parents to be able to see the curriculum at school. I would like some more transparency that's happening on the district level as well as on the state board, so that we have some better cooperation between all levels, from a state, local, and parent level.
Thank you. Linda, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, I have it. Thank you so much. So this is really the heart of what I'm passionate about, and that's effective governance. In the state of Utah, our public education system is a shared governance system with elected officials. So the state legislature, you asked specifically about state board and local board, but you can't have this conversation without including the legislature. The legislature has the responsibility to establish this public education system as a resource to the public, to our parents, to our students. Then the state board is responsible for setting those core standards. I'm actually really excited about the direction that the state board is going right now with their strategic plan, very focused on providing, getting students ready for that next step and civically engaged, critical thinking. That's all part of their new strategic plan. I'm excited about that. But they set those core standards. They provide the resources and the support for our local school districts to be successful. It all begins with those standards. So what do we want taught in schools? It starts with the state board setting very clear standards that we know we can get to. The local boards are responsible primarily for then choosing that curriculum, using parent boards. I push back a little bit that parents can't get involved. Not all parents, but it's a very transparent process. Parents are able to come to every board meeting that we have in our local school districts, call, and we will address those. But it's very transparent, and it starts with strong standards at the state board.
Thank you. Linda, this is back to you. Public education is set to experience significant funding changes due to state budget cuts in the last 2 legislative sessions. With more cuts predicted in the coming years, do you believe public education is adequately funded? Why or why not?
Okay, thank you for the question. Define adequate, right? Because people are always asking for more. I have colleagues across the nation, including in Massachusetts, which is the highest funded public education system and doing the best, and they are still asking for more funding. So I don't know that funding is adequately funded. No, what I do know is, as a local board member, we've had a goal of keeping class sizes low, of ensuring that our teachers have the support, of making sure our buildings are safe learning environments for our students, that they all feel safe. And it all takes resources. And it's not all about the money, but it sure is a lot about the money. We had a goal a number of years ago before COVID hit that we wanted to get our beginning teacher salary up to $60,000. And that was across the board. It started with Governor Herbert's term. And we finally get those up to $60,000, and that is not enough for my teachers to own a home in Juab School District. That's still a concern. And so I am very careful with taxpayer dollars. I don't want to spend them frivolously. I want transparency and accountability to those dollars, but we need to fund a little bit better to our public education. We're all going to go through some declining enrollment. It's going to impact us all different, but it costs a certain amount of money to run our schools, and this is a good investment. It's worth the investment, but we do have a responsibility as local board, state board, legislature to be accountable to those funds.
Thank you. Nicole.
So I do have a concern on this. We have slated for this current 2026-27 school year almost $10 billion for Utah's public education system. That is a lot of money. Here's where I researched and I find some great concern. In the year 2022 through 23, the Utah education system had a school funding of $6.8 billion. We have gone up 34%. However, when we look at our enrollment numbers of students, in the year 2022, we had 675,000 students. And currently this year, we have 643,000 students enrolled. So when we look at these numbers, we have smaller numbers of students that are enrolling. We're down 32,000% or 32,000 in numbers. And yet our amount of money has gone up 34%. I think we need to look at why do we have a request for more money? Is it necessary to have these great new school buildings, these mega schools that are going to cost a lot of money, or is it more appropriate, I feel, instead of asking for more tax dollars, that we fix and repair our schools, maybe add on, instead of charging such a surplus of money needed in our state? Also, our programs, we need to look into these online programs that every 4 years we're reevaluating, and it keeps coming recommended, oh, we need something better because the students' grades are going down. Well, maybe we need to assess these programs that they're not as effective and they're costing us too much money, and the kids' grades are not going up.
Okay,
We need to change.
thank you. Linda, did you have a response that you were wanting to?
I mean, since it went over, may I take the 30 seconds?
Yeah,
Okay, so I'm a believer in local control. As a state board, we are not a taxing entity. The money will funnel through that state board. But a lot of these decisions, a certain amount of money, 70% of my budget comes from the state legislature, 30% will come local. I think that we all have a concern about the rising costs of property tax. I think that the legislature is working on that, but we can be an advocate for even more. But let's not take away the local control of ensuring that our schools are safe buildings, and all kids like to go to a safe, fun place that they feel included. So my focus, I'm not going to argue. I mean, tax dollar money, it's sacred. We need to be transparent about it. And I have a budget hearing tonight. Please come and listen to where that money is going.
thank you. Nicole, this is gonna, this next question, we'll start with you. We'll kind of allow you to expand a little bit on what you were just talking about. If you could redirect existing education dollars into one area, where would you invest and what would you reduce?
Oh, great. I can continue what I was
Yes.
touching on. Thank you. Okay, so some of the areas that I see we could redirect, of course, we need to have safe buildings for our kids. That's absolutely possible to do with current buildings by just updating and repairing and maintaining them. And wow, we would save a lot of money on building instead of building a whole new school building. Also, the online programs, as I shared, that is also of great concern. And then the one I didn't get to is administration. I've talked in depth with I talked with our auditor, Tina Cannon of our state, and you can go to her website and you can see where the money is spent in your district, specifically where it's spent responsibly and not so responsibly. It's ironic that the years that the administration money is higher, that the output and outcome from our students and their grades is lower. And this is definitely something where we could have a better balance and be able to keep that in check, and also be able to save some of our money if it's not being spent appropriately. And as well, kind of back with the programs, these online programs, we need a better evaluation. We keep requesting more money for better online programs, but are we actually getting the outcomes that we need from our students? And I would suggest no. The tested history proves that it's paper, pencils, writing and more teacher time in the classroom and less computer time is actually when our students had the better grades. So spending more money on programs is not always the right answer.
Thanks, Nicole. Linda, how would you,
So-
what would you invest in, and how would you redirect money?
Yeah, well, I think it comes back to my guiding principles, and that's students. What is best for students? How is this going to help students learn at deeper levels? And the very person who makes the biggest difference are teachers partnering with parents and administration. And administration is key. I just read a report today that a good principal in a building increases student achievement by more than 20% within 4 years. That's incredible data. So one thing that I think we can do, we're always talking about, is it more money? Is it more this? Sometimes it's the removal. So I don't know of another industry. I don't know of any industry that can thrive when we have 50 to 60 new requirements thrown at us every year. And many of those requirements are not coming with a fiscal note, but they come with a fiscal impact, often on administrators and teachers. And that ties our hands to be responsive. I want that money going to the classroom. I can show you as a local board member where 80% of our money is going directly into personnel. Those are employees in our rural areas. Our public schools are oftentimes the largest employer. So that money that's invested into those teachers and school employees that all impact student learning goes directly back into our economy. Strong schools is the foundation to our strong economy and our strong communities.
Great, thank you. So as one of the big area rural districts that you guys represent or would represent, so we know that there's different issues that rural and urban districts do face and different challenges. How would you ensure state policy works for both urban and rural districts? Oh, and this is Linda. We're starting with Linda.
Thank you. Yeah, our rural school districts are different. I grew up in the city, but like I said, I'm the fifth generation to live in Levan and raise my children here. And I want my children to have some opportunities. It doesn't mean they have to have the same courses as some that are along the Wasatch Front, but it does mean that they should have opportunities to succeed. If they want to go to higher ed, they should have the skills and knowledge ready to do that. Some of their pathways are going to take them into the trade. So it's not a matter of the same type, like everything has to be the same. But in order to ensure that our rural schools are getting those opportunities is making sure we have a strong voice at the table, one that understands what it's like to live in our rural areas. When the legislature or state board are talking about cutting transportation costs, that impacts our rural schools differently. We have kids on the bus sometimes up to an hour, 75 minutes just to get to and from school. When it's extracurricular activities, some of our kids are driving 3 hours on a bus and they're still playing within region play. This is not an extra game. So all of that impacts schools. It's having a voice at the table who understands what it's like to be in the classroom, what it's like to be in the boardroom, and how these decisions are impacting our rural communities. Our needs are the same, and yet our students are different, and a voice at the table would go a long way.
Thank you. Nicole.
So I have lived in Washington County for about 15 years of my life, and I was in a rural city there. I've been a homesteader for 15 years. I've raised my kids in the little country areas, and I participated, however, in a district that was with St. George, a very large district, and I was passionately involved there. What I saw, both from a city and also a rural resident perspective, I've learned that oftentimes the kids that are in the schools that are rural don't have the same amount of funding that the larger schools have, and that can affect so many different areas of our education system, particularly when special education is a great example. So I currently live in Sevier County right now. They are a hub for a service center of those that are special needs kids. And I did live here before Washington County, and my own autistic daughter, we really struggled to be able to get the needs, her needs met with the services and professionals. And I've gone and spoken to many, many parents, teachers, admins, even professionals that are outside of the school district to see if that's changed. It's still a struggle. They only have one ABA therapist for 7 counties out of that service center. Parents are on waiting lists for kids for their needs to be met. This is of great concern. I would definitely want to make sure that whether it's sports or special education or an extracurricular activity, that the kids have access to that, just like the cities. My kids grew up in the dual immersion program, and my son speaks Chinese fluently and from Washington County. That was because we were near St. George. We had that in our little schools. We don't have that out here in some of these rural towns. So I would like to
Thank
see
you,
a better
Nicole.
balance.
Yep. Great. I appreciate that. For those of you online, please make sure you're putting your questions in the chat. I'm gonna ask another question or two, and we will get to your questions. Oh, Linda, yes.
I was just wondering if I could have the extra 30 seconds.
You have a rebuttal? Yes.
Yeah, so it's not so much a rebuttal, but it is a recognition that yes, we do not have the economies of scale. So we do use these service centers and they're phenomenal, but that also comes with resources. So it comes back to funding, and we have to be willing as a state to recognize our rural school districts do need more state support.
Thank you. So I have a question here. Many students come to school with needs that are outside of the education realm, such as hunger and anxiety, that can impact their ability to learn. What do you see as the school's role in addressing these issues and why? And this is going to start with Nicole.
Great, thank you. I just had a conversation with an administrator in District 14 just this week on this topic. I really liked how their school district handles mental, extra mental support. And they do, of course, we have school counselors on campus. However, he was a very strong advocate of the parents being more involved in making decisions for their kids. So their district actually reaches outside of school to find a higher level of specific professionals on a state level and to recommend those parents to take their child to whatever those specific needs are. So thus, we could be getting more specific psychologists for specific topics for our kids by the schools referring that, and parents have more say. And the parents get to choose and be involved in that process instead of a child just being sent to a school counselor, which we do need. But I feel like this needs to be outsourced more and getting our community more involved on a local level, involving maybe getting that family to the food bank or helping them to be able to have the resources that they need to feed their kids. Or if they need that they know what options are available at the school as well. This is something that can go on both sides of the fence in the school as well as out. And I think we could better use resources a little better there. I also see from the state has outlined from a portrait of a graduate, we have shifted our focus from just academics to now more of an approach of social emotional learning, and it covers a wider span. And I feel like this is somewhat distracting during the school day, that this may be one of the reasons our grades have gone down, is only one of the 13 points outlined in that is academics. And it's taking up time in the school where we should be more focused on academics.
Great, thanks, Nicole. Linda.
Yeah, thank you. Well, we know that if students' basic needs are not being met, that it's very difficult to learn. So do students need to come to school with a full stomach? Yes. Do they all? No. And sometimes that's not the fault of the parents. So providing this resource to parents is important. Also, I am a believer that parents are responsible for raising their children. They set the values in their home, and those values change. So we should have some type of community values. What do we support? We support students being able to learn in a safe environment, and we should be focused on that learning. I think the other thing I'll say is one thing that has been very helpful and something that I hear from parents is the school is a resource for them. Parents have the fundamental responsibility for the education of their children. I believe that public education needs to fill that resource and be a viable option. It doesn't mean that parents shouldn't choose other options, but I want them to be able to choose public education because it's a trustworthy, viable option for society. I also value it as a resource to provide other resources to parents that need extra help, whether it's in mental health or counseling, speech therapy. So I like the way we do it in JUAB with a JUAB coalition of community resources so that we're addressing families and not just individual students, and it becomes a very important resource to families.
Thank you, Linda, and thank you, Nicole. I'm going to now switch over to the questions that we're getting online. So thanks everyone for submitting questions. We'll try to get to as many as we can, but we do have limited time. So the first question, and Linda, this will come to you. How do you feel about programs for advanced students?
Well, I think it's very important. My guiding principle is doing what's right for students and student focused, whether that student needs interventions because they are not meeting benchmarks or learning, or expansion of those. We can't hold students back because they're advancing at different levels. And so there's all kinds of ideas of what this works, but kids don't fit into a certain box. They don't come with the exact same skills and supports, and they certainly don't learn at the same level. So we need to provide opportunities and resources to our teachers to be able to diversify, to be able to provide opportunities for students to learn beyond that one grade level, or opportunities to learn in high school. So when you get to at elementary, beginning into middle school, it's foundational skills of preparing for the next level. High school, we should be looking at all kinds of different opportunities to push that student as far as they can go to prepare for the next step. And that means it's taking a look at what it takes. Where are those resources? And in our rural schools, we need more help getting those resources to our rural areas.
Thanks, Linda. Nicole.
I just recently had a parent reach out to me with this very concern, and he has a child that's in elementary. He's requested a couple times for the school to evaluate if that child should advance. And so I called several just school districts and also members on the board to see how this process works. And I have learned it's up to each district. However, on an average, what happens is they create a panel between the principal, teacher, a counselor, and evaluate whether that child should move or not. This will be changing in the next year. The USBE just recently voted on K through third that the schools have the ability to make that assessment themselves without parental involvement or say. That's something that I would like to see parents more involved in the future. But it is more of a difficult process to get a child tested and evaluated with all the people on board to move that child. I would like to see where there's just access to a test that if the child tests and they're able to opt out of that they can move up automatically and we get that child on the right level so they're not wasting time in a grade where they're not progressing. When we get into the older grades, I really appreciate my own son has been in a college level program and he's graduating from high school with his associate's degree. I think these are wonderful opportunities for the kids that are advanced, that they should be able to have that. I would also like to see more skills that are taught in the high schools so that when kids graduate, they have some ability to be able to get out and make money, whether that's just moving on to with a trade, or if they want to progress into a trade school or college. But St. George has a great program of where the kids actually get to choose if they want to learn 3D printing, engineering, building. It's great for kids to learn these skills in school and to have that as an option. I would like to see that to continue.
Thank you, Nicole. We have another audience question here. Studies show that children learn and retain information better using paper and pencil rather than screens. What's your stance on this, and would you consider limiting or removing use of screens for core academic subjects? And Nicole, we're starting with you.
Hi, okay, will you repeat that question one more time?
I muted myself, sorry. So studies show that children learn and retain information better using paper and pencil rather than screens. So what's your stance on this? And would you consider limiting or removing use of screens for core academic subjects?
Yes, thank you. This is one of my passions. Absolutely, I would be in favor of removing the screen time in the classrooms. We need to just limit it. There's just too much of it. I know this has been a discussion that went through legislation just recently on the Utah State Board of Education for K through third grade. There will be less time on the screens. However, this is what I see is a problem. We have just last week, the board voted on Gemini being an AI teacher for the next school year. And my concern with children being involved on the computer with AI is that it's replacing valuable time with a teacher that has a breathing, caring heart. We just watched in March the White House walk out a life-size robot and introduce it as the new AI teacher of the future. I personally was one of those teachers in the year 2020 that worked for a company that received an email overnight, and 7,000 American teachers were fired, and we were replaced with our very own faces on the screen of AI, and all 6 years of my lesson plans were stolen and used for that. Our teachers are in great danger right now of their careers being replaced by AI, and our students are in danger with us being reliant on a computer to teach them. It's not the same, and research shows us kids do not learn the same on a computer as writing with pencils and paper and pen. It's a different mapping system, the way it works in the brain to learn and hold this information. I would always advocate for more time returning back to the way we used to learn and our grades were better, with reading a real book, writing real papers, using our brains for creative thinking instead of relying on a computer to give us multiple choices and giving us the answer we have to guess or pick from. That's completely different than us being able to output.
Thanks, Nicole. Linda.
Thank you for the question. So technology is a tool and it can be used to enhance learning, but it certainly needs to be used appropriately. And we do know that research shows that when students are learning how to learn, that eye-hand coordination is critical, that writing is critical. There's a certain amount of learning that just comes from pencil, paper, and we know that. So for me, it's a focus on ensuring that our teachers have that training, have really good resources to address that. There is nothing that can replace a good teacher. No AI, no technology. That human connection is fundamental to reading. And what I do appreciate, since Nicole brought it up, what I do appreciate about what the state board did just last week with the Gemini is that they are focused on student privacy and teacher privacy and providing those tools. The other thing that I found that I really liked was that they put it back into local control. I trust our teachers and I need them to be the professionals that they are. I want to provide them the resources, but they are the deciding factor in that classroom of when technology would enhance or not. We don't need the pushback, like we don't need it pushed onto them, but we do need to provide them the skills. And I have seen masterful teachers use technology to enhance learning, but it's age appropriate. And most of that occurs, the expansion of technology occurs as kids get older.
Thanks, Linda. Yes, Nicole, you have 30 seconds.
May I respond? Thank you.
Yeah.
I am concerned with the AI, though it's our future. We cannot avoid it. We certainly should have a class for students to learn how to use it and to develop a future with it. However, I do worry that this is something that is going to replace our teachers. And I don't feel that it's the teachers that should have the say on how much we use of this in the classroom. The parents should be the first by the Utah Constitution. They are the first educators of our kids. And if they feel that there's too much use on a computer, they have the right to say that. We do live in a generation where kids have two parents working, and they are often babysat by computers at home. Then they're sent to school for learning time on a computer, and then they're sent home with homework with more time on a computer. And
Thank
we
you.
are seeing behavior in kids that they're zoning out and they're not grasping the concepts that they should be.
Linda, 30 seconds.
Thank you. So, yes, it's all about the balance. I do appreciate the legislation that is researched back on what is that right balance. And that technology, especially in our learning years, early learning years, should not be used for free time, that it's very intentional. And so when I say I trust our teachers, I do. But that comes with a partnership. I really value when we encourage parents to be part of this. We're not leaving them behind. We're not doing this without them. They are partners. We know what that secret sauce is that helps with student learning. And it's when parents and teachers are partnering together, all focused on student learning.
Thank you. Oh, okay. 20 seconds, Nicole.
Okay, so I am concerned with the data privacy that's being collected on our students on the computers and AI as well. This is not something that we have safeguards that are set up by the board for protection. And the digital privacy agreement is signed by the board, but it doesn't protect the children in all ways. We now have assessments that we didn't used to have prior to the computers that are not academic related. They're social, emotional related. And the kids, as they go through the schools, they have a character rating score now that moves on to the college level, and it's generated by these computers, which is who's creating these behind there and giving our kids these scores. There is a lot of data collected on our kids that's not protecting our children's privacy.
Thank you, Nicole. And Linda, I want to give you then 20 seconds because that one really was a response more related to data privacy. So did you have something to add there?
Thank you. You know what? We should be focused on student privacy. I appreciate the efforts that the state board has already made, that our local districts are making. It is holding some of the software companies. It's not necessarily a public school making this decision, but it's holding them responsible. That if we're using these tools, that they are also abiding by the rules that Utah sets. It should be fundamental protection of student and teacher privacy.
Thank you. That was excellent. Thank you both so much for that. I have totally forgot who was supposed to go first on this next question. So maybe one of you can just unmute yourself after I've read it and start us off. So let's do a reading one. Reading is an intensive focus for our state right now. And, you know, Nicole, you had mentioned some of our grades in that or where our students are at. What are your thoughts for reading level accountability across homeschool, private, charter, and public schools in Utah? Let's go, Linda.
Okay. Well, I certainly think there needs to be accountability across all levels, and that starts first with let's ensure that we have strong standards. Where should students be reading, and that we're measuring that reading. So I love assessments, but assessments need to be useful to students, useful to parents, and useful to teachers so that we can be responsive to learning. It's all about making sure that we have interventions in place. So we know that when students are reading on grade level at the end of third grade, like this is data across the board, that students do better, but not all students are going to meet that. I had a daughter with dyslexia. She did not meet those. We knew that she probably wouldn't meet that benchmark until high school, but I wasn't going to just hold her back. So I appreciated that we started these conversations early. We are addressing these with interventions, and she's reading on grade level and is very successful. But all students need to be treated differently, and they need to have the resources in place to respond to those interventions. But reading is a fundamental right. I believe all people should be able to read at high levels. I appreciate the data that just came out on NAEP, the national assessment. It does show that our students in reading are doing significantly better than they did in 1970, but we're still behind. And what is the most startling data is that from right now, 14% of our secondary students find joy in reading. That's down from 35% in 1984. That's a concern. I want kids reading and enjoying reading so they can read to learn for life.
Thanks, Linda. Nicole.
What we are doing right now is not working. And clearly we can see that as our Governor Cox is trying to address that this is a great concern. Our reading levels are some of the lowest we've seen in the history of Utah. You can go to utahreportcards.com on the USB website, and you can see your own specific district, what your high school or your child's school reading level is at. It is very low. Part of my concern is we've moved so much education online now that the way that kids read online is, that you can push a button now and listen to the story. So then the kids' eyes are moving and they're not watching the words on the screen. And then they get distracted on computer and they can hit a tab where, gosh, I'm getting reports from parents in Iron County where their kids have been playing the Epstein files through their kids' Chromebooks at schools. Instead of doing the work when it's school time. It's very distracting, and they can get into things that are maybe not the best and definitely not reading. Studies show that reading from a physical book are best. My senior this year graduated. His English class had a short story they analyzed 19 different times. My kid hates reading after that experience. He read that story so many times, and he said most of the kids just cheated on using AI to write reports, so they were not even growing with writing skills. We need to get to the root cause of why our reading is so low. And if these programs that we're investing more tax dollars into are actually building and increasing the ability, which I believe they're not, our time-tested history proves reading from a book is what creates curiosity and creative thinking. And it invites children to go back and forth on pages and to be curious about what they're investigating rather than a computer that's just giving them information.
Thanks,
I think
Nicole.
there's a change.
Yes, Linda, 30 seconds.
Thank you. So I am actually really excited about some of the learning, the reading that we are seeing, particularly in our elementary schools. Just recently, Mona Elementary, for example, and I could put all three of my elementaries there, are showing incredible growth and incredible strides in reading. And that's going to be this domino effect going into. We still need to address some of the learning loss in our secondary schools. But let's look at what is happening in elementary schools, and the focus on the science of reading it's showing incredible growth. But it also involved parents, community, intentional focus on interventions, and instilling back that joy of learning. There's so much value in learning. So teach kids how to read so that they can enjoy reading and help them solve their problems. That's the whole joy of reading.
Thank you. I think that this will be the, Nicole?
Sorry, may I have 30 more seconds?
Yes. Nicole, you muted there you go. Okay.
Thank you. I ran out of time to address part of that question, and that was involving homeschool. I have been a mother that has homeschooled for 9 years. I have an autistic daughter, and that was what worked best for our family. And I will always be a huge fan of advocating for parental rights to choose their educational path, whether that's public school, private school, charter school, homeschool. Assessments and accountability for all of them. I feel, if they're taking federal dollars, then yes, there's a certain responsibility of accountability that comes with that. However, homeschool families want to have their privacy in their education of their kids. And a lot of that comes down to, well, if they want their kids to advance onto college levels, they have to be the ones to prepare them. And that is where accountability comes into. And I feel that that is a parental right to protect.
We have time for a quick question, which we will have no rebuttals in this one. And I think we start with Nicole on this one. What is your opinion on competency-based education, which is being rolled out throughout Utah?
I believe that a lot of this comes down to the academics, again, being an overall competent instruction, the way that we give it to our kids. I see a problem with the Portrait of a Graduate. It was introduced in the year 2019 from the Utah State Board of Education. 13 points outline what that overall competency is supposed to look like. And of course, the districts choose from that, but only one of those 13 points is academics. And the rest are social emotional learning. Some of these open the door and invite the opportunity for political agendas, different ideologies that make kids question things gender-wise, or mental, that introduce them to things that are different from the way parents taught them. And I believe that we need to return back to our academics. A competence-based education is that kids are receiving the core basics to be able to progress on to college. And right now we have opened the door so wide that we are not addressing a focus on what Utah needs to be able to see. I also would believe that some of these things, like we talked about the mental health, also we see some health buildings being built on campuses for some of these schools. That's something that parents need to have a say in, that it's not something that should be convenient at the schools for use. But my overall belief is just, yeah, we need to return to our academics and making that strong again in our Utah schools.
Thanks, Nicole. Linda.
Thank you. So competency, well, it's all in how we define competency-based education. If it's its true model, then students don't advance to another level before they show competence and all. And so in theory, because we do want students learning at high levels and being competent in those learning, in theory, it works great. Logistically, in the classroom, it's very difficult. You have 30 kids in the classroom. They're all learning at different levels. And so there comes with guardrails. Oftentimes when it's rolled out, what is heard by students is that I can retake tests multiple times until I show competency. Well, that only works if there are parameters in place, that it's not just about retaking a test to get a certain grade. It's about learning and what were the skills that you missed in the first place and how do we get you there. And so I do believe that we want students competent. I do believe that whatever assessment that we're using needs to measure learning. Grades should measure learning. It concerns me that we do have students that are earning grades that are not necessarily competent in all things. They're earning credit, and that's just part of the system. But in theory, yes, I want kids competent. In our CTE classes, it is easier to measure that than it is in reading and math and writing, because some of those are very subjective testing or assessment.
Thank you both so much, and I want to thank everyone online for the questions. I'm sorry we weren't able to get to all of them. We are going to now go to closing remarks from each of the candidates, and they will have 90 seconds for that. And we are going to start with Linda giving her closing remarks first.
Isn't it ending with me?
No, we started with Nicole, so we're ending with Nicole.
All right, perfect. So again, my name's Linda Hanks. I am an advocate, a believer of public education. I will always support a parent's right to choose the education pathway that they see fit. How I see public education is a resource for parents and for society. And I want public education to thrive. I see pathways that we can do, that we can build on what's working. and ensure that all students have access to high quality education that is providing them the skills and the knowledge that they need to learn for life. And I am such a believer in a strong, highly qualified teacher, and that comes with the support of a highly qualified administrator. And I want to see public education thrive. We need to do a better job of not micromanaging. That comes back to effective governance. And the reason why I'm running for state school board is to provide a strong rural voice, one that understands what it's like to be in the classroom, what it's like to be a substitute, what it's like to be at the board table, and what it's like to train on effective governance. I believe that collaboration is key. Collaboration with parents, with stakeholders, with legislators, state school board, local board members, and I want to build on what's working and focus on student learning and providing meaningful supports to our teachers, to our school personnel, and to our administration teams. Thank you.
Thanks, Linda. Nicole.
At the end of the day, this election comes down to a simple question. What kind of education do we want for Utah's children? And we have two choices right now. I believe we have one that's been around through administration for many years and has been here while our grades have gone down, while the numbers of money being needed for this department has gone up, and our grades are lower. And I feel like I've not been part of the slow boil as these things have changed under my watch. I have been in education watching from an outside view, and I do see concerns I'd like to have addressed. I believe every child deserves a strong academic foundation. I believe parents should be respected in their children's education, and that they have the right to send their children to school and not worry that the schools will change their kids' morals, their values, and family belief systems. I believe our special needs students deserve the support they need to succeed, and I believe our schools should focus preparing students for a protective, successful future, and that starts from academics. Throughout this campaign, I've traveled across 10 counties in District 14, and I've heard many, many people talk to me about their concern with the academics in the school. I feel that ideologies are taking and filling space with what used to be discussions on academics, and that this is providing soapboxes for kids that are creating some of our mental problems. And I feel like if we avoid the soapboxes and we go back to the golden rule, that everyone is treated kind and respectfully, and that we're here to focus on learning the core academics, that our children would have a better future and success.
Thank you, Nicole.
You're
We so appreciate both of you running for office. It is a lot of work, both in the campaigning, but then also afterwards with whoever's elected. And then for all of you online, we appreciate you being learning about the candidates and being a part of this process. We only become better when we are informed voters and that we're out there voting. So thank you so much for joining us today. We look forward to the primary election, and then we look forward to the general election. So thanks for joining us, and we will see you again soon.